This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is brought to you by Lexipol, the experts in policy, training, wellness support, and grants assistance for first responders and government leaders. To learn more, visit lexipol.com. That's LEXIPOL.com. Now let's get into the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzo. I will be your host. I'm a fire officer in Madison, Wisconsin. There's a lot going on throughout the country right now. First and foremost, as we are recording this, there are some hellacious battles going on with Los Angeles and California with fire, wildfire and wildland fire combined. And our hearts go out to all those affected and trying to send some positive thoughts and vibes to the misfits and firefighters there that are working so diligently. And all the sources are saying that they're very overwhelmed right now, and I know what that feels like. And Janelle, I know, by the way, welcome Janelle, who is editor in chief of Fire Rescue One, but also you're right in the middle of this a little bit. You have family that's over there in California. I hope everybody, and from what we've been talking about, so far so good, but you have a lot of friends and family affected.
A handful of friends in that area. I'm in the San Diego region, and so far we've been okay. We have really strong winds, Santa Ana winds happening here as well this week, so we're on high alert. But so far so good here in San Diego. But absolutely sending our thoughts and prayers to the Los Angeles area, all the firefighters from around the country and other countries who have come to Southern California to help. Huge appreciation. Thank you to everyone for everything that you're doing. And we'll just continue to cover these events as they unfold. We are recording today on Monday, the 13th. And so by the time this airs in a few days, who knows where we'll be. I know more strong winds are expected to hit the region. I think with the worst of it coming tomorrow, Tuesday. So we will just keep watching and keep hoping for the best, but so thankful for all the resources that have come to Southern California to help.
We just covered this topic with Chief Horton, and listen to this podcast first, and then go back and listen to Chief Horton. And within that particular episode, we talk about ways to possibly get involved in the future and to really just bring awareness to what's really going on over there. Another person that's affected a little bit is our guest today, who I think is going to help to not only bring some insights as to how we can help prepare for these events, how we can help respond in these events. It's a friend of ours, Kevin Sofen. Did I say that right?
Sometimes mispronounced Sofen, but yes, Sofen.
Sofen. Well, you are so fun, and we'll get into many reasons why, because you and I are kindred souls and spirits, because we're both Badgers. We're both misfits of the fire service, because for the last 10 plus years, you've been working behind the scenes and front and center on the technology side of the fire service, and how we can become more tech savvy, number one, and more smart, as I like to say, from the tech side of things. So first of all, welcome to the program, Kevin. Thanks for being here. You also have a tie to California. You were born and you're raised there for your many years. And we were talking, you also have some friends and I believe family that's out there a little bit, or was out there. Everybody okay there as far as you know?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I had the fortune of growing up in Manhattan Beach, California. I'm one of 7 kids, and I have a big friend group out there that lives in a lot of the Santa Monica, Palisades area. And obviously, kind of even the day before it happened, getting all the notifications of these heavy, crazy winds. And then, of course, the perfect storm, unfortunately, causing this all to unfold. And I think just it was kind of active texting. It's like, hey, is this friend okay? Is this house okay? And some not, some yes. But I think it's really, as terrible as it's been, I think you do see some of the best part of humanity come out in these situations. And I actually just talked to my mom on the phone, and I love my mom. I'm always proud of her, but I'm extremely proud of her because she found a way to be out of our house for a month and is sort of giving our house away for a month to a family that has 3 kids and figuring out schools. And I think you're seeing a lot of these stories of GoFundMe and people coming out of the woodwork to help others. Obviously, it doesn't address the core root of the issues of the challenges of wildfire, climate-induced wildfire, how to prevent this, how to better respond. But overall, everyone I know is safe, but it is it's tragic. And you see some of these stories of a family that's worked their whole life, paid off this house. They were there fighting the house with a garden hose, and it just wasn't enough. And it's tragic. And I think all I'm focused on is what we can do to help people in the immediate, but also the idea of never letting a crisis go to waste, and really wanting to use this to apply some new best practices and lessons learned. And there's people way smarter than me that could talk about that. I have some insights I'm excited to talk about, but nonetheless, yeah. So thanks for asking, and hopefully the weather and the winds and turn in our favor.
We do hear just some tremendous stories of humanity, right, and the positive aspects of humanity, and so thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for your parents for stepping up. You also mentioned too that we have to take these unfortunate tragedies and we have to learn from them and get better. And that comes back to the essence of what we do here on this program. And you've been helping the fire service get better on the technology side for over 13 years. With your knowledge and your background, you're a technology advisor to the IAFC. You serve as a senior technology advisor and director of innovation. You founded smartfirefighting.com and Unite and Move public safety sector. You're really moving us forward around technology and how we can use that technology to make efficient and better changes. You have your own podcast. And again, I mentioned this before, but I'm going to emphasize that you're also a Badger, which means your heart is in the right place, I believe, because, up here in Wisconsin, we don't have much to follow other than, usually cold weather, beer, cheese, and our Badgers. So we all stick together and try to help each other and make each other better. So I know that that's the essence behind you. So we're talking about the fires. We're talking about technology. Let's start with that. What kind of things are being utilized right now to help battle these wildfires and these wildland fires? And where do you see, or what have you heard coming forward that we really need to keep our eyes on?
So I'll answer this in kind of a two-part way. One that's very tech focused and one that's very non-tech focused. From a tech focused standpoint, I mean, probably one of the best use cases of how we're seeing technology really enhance fire safety operations are satellite communications, and maintaining redundant connectivity is one, and the other being a common operating picture, one particularly from TAC. So to start with the connectivity side, I mean, I saw Battalion Chief or District Chief Kevin Fetterman from Orange County Fire Authority, working under Fire Chief Brian Fennessy, and they were having issues with some of their connectivity, and they worked with a technology company called Armada, who works closely with Starlink. And overnight I saw this post, it was like 15 Starlink minis that came out, and it was a very basic kit that anyone gets, and you basically can set up in the field and turn on Starlink, and you're able to open up your phone and send pictures, send videos, do whatever you would need to do, and not have to worry about connectivity being a thing. And so having this satellite connectivity is like a new age thing that we can't ignore. It's becoming part of our fabric. If I could tell you that you can guarantee redundant, resilient communications through SATCOM, we can't ignore it. There's also other technologies, and you're seeing in the field. One that I'm particularly very excited about, it's one company called Degero. They do blended LTE as well as bonding with SATCOM. So it takes multiple T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, Starlink, or OneWeb, and blends it all together. So you're seeing that integrated to more dismounted vehicles, and it's just ensuring that you don't lose communications, and ensuring that you can have access to the cloud, and you can run radio time transcription. You can run real-time drone video analytics to understand what are you seeing, what's a real hotspot, what's an ember, where's your smoke. That's all stuff happening today with different drones that are being deployed from afar, from near. So that's one that is encouraging, practical, being used. Another one is called the Tactical Assault Kit, TAC. There's a couple different groups that are really big proponents of this. I know there's a firefighter up in Corona, AJ Johansson. He's been a big pioneer of all things TAC, but it's a government funded, government made by the Air Force software that's a common operating picture that allows you to track where are the drones, where are the trucks, where are my people, where are the hydrants. It's a free tool that is something that can be used across states, across jurisdictions, across fire, police, law. And I'm seeing photos and videos of it just working in real time, and it's free. And it's, of course, there are tools and things you can do that aren't necessarily free. But you, at the same time, a lot of different resources from the TAC Product Center and the TAC Public Safety Foundation that are making this available and accessible. So those were two that I just saw that made me happy and excited. That's like, we shouldn't have to worry about connectivity, and we shouldn't have to worry about interoperability from a common operating picture standpoint. The other big one is just straight up drone streaming of videos and being able to share that and track stuff and see stuff. And a company, Drone Sense, is really leading that and really encouraging how they continue to listen to their customers, learn and apply. So all those are ones that I'm very excited about. I'm seeing a lot of videos too and stuff, kind of it's like the after action report and looking at all the stuff that happened and could have happened. And no doubt, I think that's very helpful. But there's also a lot of these kind of Monday morning quarterbacks and people looking at it and be like, oh, we should have done this, I should have done that. And so I think it's helpful. And I think there's aspects of AI and aspects of data and aspects of all stuff that are great. But there also, there's another individual I follow very closely, and everyone listening should follow him. His name is Ralph Bloemers, Bloemers. I met him at the World Fire Congress this year, and he's done a great job of really documenting and looking into the human landscape interface challenges and opportunities in the wildfire WUI space. And he had a post that we've talked about quite a bit in terms of oftentimes wildfire and WUI preparation is not really that quote unquote sexy. It's sort of like people think that we need like a big jet engine, which actually there's a technology that is putting jet engines on fires, but that's a different story and different challenge. People think we need these big helicopters and big planes, and of course they're needed situationally. And you also hear that phrase of kind of a challenge, a death by 1,000 cuts. I look at one of the solutions, and one of the things we really need to take more seriously is the solution by 1,000 little things. And Ralph had a post in terms of we oftentimes looking at, again, the planes dropping red lines of all these big kind of big solutions. But you know what really works? And I'm just going to read it from the screen I'm looking at, is removing vegetation in your zone, replacing vents to prevent ember entry, removing attached combustible fence and gates, cutting back trees and overhanging limbs, and removing combustible mulch. None of those look that cool or sound that cool. But when you do that on a community-wide level and do it 1,000 times, it really does make a difference. And one of my biggest hopes is that we continue to see a big push in some of this public safety, community risk reduction outreach. I know there's other challenges with home hardening and needing enough space, and you need a certain amount of space, but property values are so expensive, so you can't just double lots. And so that's a whole other issue. The insurance is a whole other issue and stuff above my pay grade. But so I do think there's a lot of cool tech, but I also think there's a lot of really basic stuff that has been done, but frankly has not been taken seriously enough. So I'm really hoping a lot of the work that Ralph Bloemers is doing, a lot of the work from kind of wildfire prevention, a lot of stuff that AJ Johansson is doing from TAC, and a lot of stuff that kind of SATCOM connectivity and individual tracking that OFCA is doing, just continues to be spotlighted and taken to the next level because it works, and just we can build on it.
Yeah. You mentioned a great point, because sometimes tech can get us, can get us to focus on maybe the wrong things. If our fundamentals aren't there, and what you had just mentioned were the fundamentals of wildfire prevention, right? Like this is where we start, and then tech can add to that. And I think too, you see all over the fire service, you might have a department invest in drones, but their ICS is crap and their policies are crap, and all the things behind that, like, are, the drone becomes this little pet project of a chief, where all the fundamentals of fighting the fire aren't even being utilized. So, let's back up a little bit and go fundamentally. Technology of use that you've seen over the last 10 years, where does a fire department, where should they be solid already, and where should then they start to focus from the tech side of things?
Well, we were talking about football earlier and us being scones. I am a diehard, irrationally emotional Green Bay Packers fan, and I'm moderately grieving today, but at the same time, learning and applying and moving on to next year. But one of the best things about the Packers, it's a publicly owned team. They have open community day kind of early in the preseason. And when you watch the early practices, you have these professionals that are being paid millions of dollars that in the first couple of weeks of practice, they're doing the basics, the fundamentals, how to block, how to tackle, how to catch a ball, the most basic stuff. And you hear a lot about this in college basketball too, whether it's Coach K or John Wooden. It's like always do the next right thing right. Just like the most basic little pass, block. And I think there's a lot of analogies to sports that we can apply to how we operate as a fire service and how we integrate new tech. And I'll also state this now that I'm not a firefighter. I've had the fortune of working in the fire service for 13 years and are working with a range of different fire tech companies. Working with fire service members fills my cup and energizes me and wakes me up and loves to do stuff with them every day. But so kind of back to that point of how to integrate tech. I mean, if you don't have the fundamentals down, you can't just expect all of a sudden a drone or AI to solve your problems. And AI in particular, John Oates talks about this, like you're only as good as whatever you put into it. And you can't just expect, if we don't know how to fully do our own operations, how do we expect some software ones and zeros to figure it out for us? We're wrongfully mistaken if we think that. But I think just the most important thing is it really comes with the change management and really looking at how to crawl, walk, run, how to not just kind of think, oh, that's for FDNY or that's for OFCA or that's for Chicago Fire. It's like, well, there's actually a lot of different things that we're seeing of how can you integrate wearables in your fire service. There are departments in West Metro Colorado leading it for sleep studies. There are Washington D.C. Fire that's using it for early cadet training for physiological alerting and tracking. There's a bunch of these case studies, and that's kind of my piece of the puzzle and hope of why I exist is spotlighting cool stuff that's happening where tech, it doesn't have to seem so far-fetched that it's impossible. It can be done, but it has to be done by the fire service, for the fire service, done in the right way, having fire chiefs talking with the mayor, talking with the community about why we are investing $25,000 into this new virtual reality training program that's going to reduce risk, X, Y, and Z reason. So yeah, I think that kind of a roundabout way of saying just the basic fundamentals are important, because if you don't have that, you can't implement and you can't explain to others about why you're doing it to get funding to then extract value out of it. So yeah, roundabout way of answering your question there.
You had mentioned, wearables for health, right? It goes back to fundamentals though. Like, we get this data, right? We're using technology a lot to give us data. What are you seeing there too? You had mentioned John Oates, who is he's our data guru, but he also says too, he's like, well, you have to be prepared for data, meaning what are you looking for? And then what are you going to do about it? Right. That's the other side of stuff. So from the tech side of things, do you see that there's more focus on operations or data collection, or where do you kind of see that focus going?
I mean, I think you could look around the country and answer that question either way. But I think kind of where I am seeing it today and moving forward is I think probably Chief Horton and Oates talked about this, about all things NERIS, the National Emergency Response Information System. I think I got that right. Shout out Rebecca Harned and Evram and Lori at the USFA. But yeah, NERIS it's here and it's not going away. So just kind of thinking about data being created, data being consumed, data being synthesized, data being used to help you identify trends, help you make budgeting decisions. So I think it's exciting to look at, again, not just putting in a report because you have to, but using NERIS because you want to, because it's going to save you time and save you money and save you effort. And then it's one of those things too, of like, for me, I always kind of hated numbers and hated Excel and hated Google Sheets, but I spent the time to really learn how to use them and how to use formulas. And then now I love using these Excel sheets, but it definitely took a learning curve. So I think there's a challenge with anything new is sort of like, oh, I don't want to deal with this, but there definitely is a learning curve with anything new that's new, particularly if we're talking about data. But if you have the data, I mean, you talk a lot about if you then have a steering wheel where you can make decisions about, again, whether you need to invest more pre-planning resources here, whether we need to look at doing a community risk reduction education campaign on smoke alarms or home hardening, whatever it may be. And then ultimately then using that to make unemotional, pragmatic budget decisions on why we need a new fire. I mean, you see new fire station analytics, like it's one of the best examples of, there's a lot of data that goes into why we need a new fire station here. It's kind of taking that next level approach about how can we identify the top 10 known issues and start to really make cracks at it and be like, what if we could reduce road crashes at this intersection by 15% over the next year? I mean, what do we need to do to make that happen? And I think those are kind of the exciting conversations that you'll continue to see. And I believe we have the right people to helm at USFA and then the John Oates of the world with IPSDI and then organizations like Fire Rescue One and Clarion and IAFC that are driving important conversations to make this happen. But it's still ultimately all trickles down to what's happening on the ground with the fire chief and the firefighter. And if it's not kind of shown and presented in a way that can benefit you and make you better and save you time, you're not going to do it. So frankly, it's on, you, Aaron, it's on you, Janelle, it's on me to continue to make it something that is cool, that is something that we want to do, not just something that, we're being forced to do because it's what our boss told us.
Yeah, or someone else's agenda is being kind of thrown at us a little bit, right? You had mentioned, it's my responsibility, and I kind of look in the mirror. I'm like, I'm a 50-year-old new, I'm a newer officer. I like to say I'm fairly tech savvy, from a standpoint of I enjoy like, hey, this TV isn't talking to this and this phone, and I'd like to figure that stuff out. But there's a lot that are my generation or a little bit older that are not. What message would you have to them to, give them motivation to stay to it, or maybe a couple of tips to help them learn and adapt to some of the new technologies?
Yeah. Well, you can see my dog has officially joined the podcast back here.
Yes. All right.
Her
We love.
name's Aspen, and she was found on the streets of Mexico and shipped up to Chicago, and she's the best.
She's not liking the cold, but she's
No,
probably liking
I literally have to carry. She's a 60-pound blue-eyed pitty. I have to carry her at times. I'm like, it's so ridiculous. But yeah, to your question, I mean, I think I've heard that phrase of like, oh, this is the way it's always been done. And I always pause. I'm like, like since the dawn of time, since cavemen, since like forever, it's like, no, we've been doing that practice for 50 years, 75 years. And again, for that, we did the best thing at that point in time, the Benjamin Franklin, go as fast as you can and put the wet stuff on the red stuff. And it's like, there was a lot of merit to that based on what we knew, but like, we know more now. We have more data in terms of the bad stuff that firefighters are exposed to before, during, and after fire scenes, and how it's not good to have any carcinogen exposure from a health and wellness perspective. I mean, I think when it's framed in terms of a firefighter health and safety and just kind of doing the job better, serving the community more effectively, making sure we're going home safer, I find that most first responders are open to it. There is that phrase, if you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't think we expect seasoned fire chiefs or firefighters to like ultimately be the champion. But I think to those, it's like empower your battalion chief, your deputy chief, your district chief to be a student and prove you wrong, prove you right, in the sense that it's like, again, you don't have to go from not sending emails to, being the one that's championing a new drones to first responder program. I think you just need to be open to allowing someone that's between the age of 25 and 55. I'm not, younger, older too, but really those are the ones that are formative years within the fire service, like being open to them proposing a way to, hey, here's unemotional data. Here's how it can help us, and here's how we're going to do it, and really doing that through pilot programs. And so I think it's just not saying no without really giving it a fair shake and be proven wrong or proven right, the sense that something new can really, again, save time, save money, save lives, save headaches, allow you to go to soccer practice at night to see your daughter, like just basic things like that, to where it's not just like something new and far out there, but something that's very relatable. So just don't say no. Consider saying maybe.
Yeah. You had mentioned, the chiefs, right? You work through the IAFC, International Association of Fire Chiefs, the IFC Tech Summit we just had a couple months ago. And what are you seeing, from the IAFC, from the chiefs side, from the technology? What were some of the takeaways that you had from that summit?
For sure. Yeah. Thank you. I think it was unofficially the fourth technology summit international, but there's a little break in between COVID, and it's now gone 3 years in a row.
Okay.
I've had the great fortune and opportunity of helping guide and lead the content of the show. So this past year was coordinating 90 some speakers and 45 speaking events. And 2 years ago, when that first time I did it, it was, hey, let's get the smartest people in the room and let's figure it out and just put people together. And it was a really good showing. But I knew I wanted last year to be different and excited about what we learned and applying for this upcoming year. But I think we've all been to conferences where it's just death by PowerPoint and you have just person on stage with PowerPoint talking at you. Some people like that. And I've actually also been told sometimes the curse of knowledge, like some people don't know this stuff and they are interested in listening to a 25 to 50-minute presentation. I personally fall right asleep. It could be like, regardless of how qualified the speaker is, I have a tough time staying awake for anything that's longer than 25, 30 minutes, which is why I really like to focus on dynamic, unique, engaging content. And at TSI 2024, we made a big focus on trying to take a step towards an unconference. And I took a lot of this from the South by Southwest event that happens in Austin every year. And there's a lot of this kind of merit around the unconference, which is participant-led content. And the idea there is not just like, hey, this is what we're going to talk to you about. You're going to just consume the content. We're opening with a fire hose and you're going to drink it. But more of, hey, one example, Ron Cooley led a session on fire station technology, and there was a couple experts on stage, and that format was, hey, everyone, we're talking about fire station technology. We got a couple experts on stage here. What questions do you have around this? And it led to be like, hey, I want to learn more, talk to me about the challenges of alerting technology and audible versus haptic, and what are the challenges and differences. And then that led to just a really good focused discussion for 15 minutes on that. So I really like that format. But most importantly, which was really monumental or cool or awesome, where we had a couple of these really good interactive workshops. And there was two in particular that really stood out. One was led by Microsoft, focusing on how to use AI in your fire department. Most people think of ChatGPT and it's like really cool, and you can write a letter to your friend in the form of a Swifty, and whatever. Whatever. Like, it's crazy.
Right now, people are Googling that. They're writing, can I write this NIFRS report in the format of a Swifty?
You can
Okay. So
do lots of stuff with a large language learning model, but it's also what does that mean for a fire chief in a volunteer fire department in Idaho? And so there was really cool lessons learned on like, how can you use chat, or what are the different ways that you can use these different AI tools, and how to write a press release in Spanish, how to curate a bunch of information to send an internal email. So there was just like these little different tools from an AI perspective, in terms of like pragmatically and practically showing how can you use AI in your own context. So that's one example that was like a really good hands-on workshop where they gave tools, they gave laptops to different firefighters to like test it, try it. And just this was a 75-minute session where it felt electric and you just felt the energy of that room.
if somebody's listening and they want to just start somewhere on AI, where would you recommend?
Just like going on Copilot and going on chat and just frankly pressing buttons and testing it. I mean, you'd be surprised and shocked about how cool and practical these tools are. And granted, you only get better by testing and using it. But Sai Narayan and David Williams from Microsoft are two of the most pragmatic leaders I know about using AI in public safety. Another person I'm working with closely on the Tech Council, Scott Roseberry. He's the Tech Council lead. He's been a practitioner of using this within his fire department at Garland. So those are just people and resources that I would suggest. The other workshop that was just awesome was Chelsea Rubidoux, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Chelsea from NFPA led a session on Craig 1300 and how to use this tool. And then it's kind of using Esri tools, and everyone kind of in these breakout sessions were given laptops and given data sets and kind of talking about how to address the traffic challenges of this issue, and kind of looking at some data and then figuring out how to create a press release to the community about what you're going to do about it. And so those sessions, to me, I left those and I was like, I just want to bottle this up and multiply it by 1,000. There were also some really awesome other sort of panel sessions. For example, John Oates led one with Chief Mike Binney from West Metro and Kate Paulo from DC Fire about what are wearables, how can wearables be integrated, and just really good two-way dialogue. Really fascinating to see how wearables can become part of the fire service, not just something that is far-fetched and something that is impossible, but what Mike Binney is doing from using wearables from a sleep analysis study and really identifying, hey, yeah, you slept 8 hours, but you also consumed 6 drinks of alcohol and you were smoking
Mhm.
tobacco and your sleep really wasn't that good. Hey, what if we improved your sleep score? And they've been having phenomenal results. And, I know you mentioned Mike's going to be the podcast. He is a wealth of knowledge, and that's a program and process that almost any fire department could replicate. And then DC Fire using wearables from trying to understand cadets' health during training and getting physiological alerts notified to them via TAC or their other software, Dashi, knowing that, hey, this fire service member's heart rate is out of whack. Someone's got to put this guy in rehab. The other is, again, just knowing where my people are, dot on map. Truly, by wearing a wrist-worn passive wearable, knowing firefighter, this firefighter is in the back right corner of 30 feet elevation of this building. That stuff exists today. So I think just that was really cool, those sessions, and then really good networking, really good hands-on opportunities. It was a little cold in Oklahoma City, so we didn't do as much outside demonstrations. But Oklahoma City, what a cool city. Very welcoming. Chief Kelly and then also Chief Baker from Tulsa, they showed up. Shout out to the OKC and Tulsa FDs for just kind of showing up. But I guess other things that were really encouraging were we did a pre-con as well with NIST and NFPA and UL and everyone talking about the 10-year anniversary this year of the research roadmap to the future of smart firefighting. And while that's awesome, and frankly, I kind of reignited my career on building smart firefighting and building on this, we do not need another roadmap. We absolutely are fine with roadmaps. What we need now are what I like to call, and I'm working on, our cookbooks, our guidebooks,
Mhm.
playbooks. Okay, great. Drones sound great. How can I make a drone program work for me that's designed by me, for the community? Great. I want wearables. What's the process of doing a pilot program? What's the process of convincing my firefighters that they actually want to use this? What's the way to get the funding for this? So those were things that I find to be very needed, and we're in the process of kind of building that out with the Tech Council and the overall kind of major stakeholders. So TSI 2024 was a hit. I'm beyond grateful and excited that I had the opportunity to lead it. And TSI 2025 is set to be launched hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But kind of earmark your calendar. It's most likely going to be that time in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, kind of the first week or so of December. And if you didn't go last year, I strongly encourage you to come this year. And I also think that if you are a fire service member, an IAFC member, want to be, the Tech Council is a force for good. There's 6 subcommittees. We're actively meeting, actively creating some gap analysis and identifying technologies and pilot programs. And I go on and on about all of it, but just appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. And I think TSI 2025 needs to be on your radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll do what we can to help promote that show, and hopefully we'll be there too. Um, Kevin, can you tell us a little bit more about the Tech Council?
Previously chaired by Dan Muncie, now Scott Roseberry, and also on the Tech Council committee, you got Corey Claiborne and Will Brocious. Just awesome guys. These are the people that make me excited and just fulfilled to work with and for the fire service. And they're all active fire service members. So my role is sort of, I'm not a firefighter. And so I help set up meetings. I help facilitate conversations. I help kind of do a lot of this admin stuff amongst them. But the Tech Council right now, we have about 75 or so active fire service members and industry. And really the goal is to be a force for good for the fire service. Subcommittees are communications, common operating picture, data, GIS, unmanned systems, wearables, and now artificial intelligence. And the whole point of these subcommittees is to kind of have these different groups that are focused on one particular topic. And this year we're actively focused on publishing across different areas, maybe Fire Rescue One, the iChiefs, in terms of identifying trends, opportunities, challenges, case studies. So 1, we'll be publishing more. 2, we'll be kind of being involved with the external media, external podcasts. 3, we are planning more workshops between now and FRI and TSI 2025. And then one of the things that we're really focused on is creating a industry analysis in terms of what's every company in each of those niches, and who are they? What are POCs? How can we get them involved? How can we kind of evaluate them? And I want to continue to leverage these 75 super passionate, incredible fire service members that I just have the fortune of, again, being a piece of the puzzle, and they all are eager to do more. And I am trying to continue to allow the Tech Council to be a force for good with knowledge sharing, with sharing best practices. And one thing I love about the fire service is that it's not like, hey, in industry, it's like, guard my patent and data with a moat and no one may be part of it. Fire service is like, dude, copy me. Like here's everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it's exciting to think about what are ways that we can continue to control copy and change a little bit, and how we can make different best practices and new technology initiatives work for groups around the country. And the IAFC Tech Council is going to continue to play a big role in that.
Yeah. Now, who's on the Tech Council, or who can join the Tech Council? And
Do you need
should,
do you need
yeah, are
volunteers?
you looking for more folks?
We're actively looking for volunteers. I know there is some criteria. I mean, you do need to be a member of the IFC, and an individual membership, I think, is like under $100 or something. So that's one criteria. But besides that, I mean, if we're actively looking for anyone that's active in the fire service and eager to learn and participate and be involved in technology advancement in those 7 subcommittees I mentioned, and then industry members too. There's a little bit of different criteria, but there's a lot of industry part of it, and you're sort of taking off your industry hat and not kind of talking about how your product is the best thing since sliced bread, but you're advocating and playing more of a industry agnostic role. And there's some of the smartest people in the world are on the industry side. So it's important to continue to bridge that gap between industry and public safety. And so yeah, actively, if you're involved, send me an email, Sofen, Sofen at IAFC.org, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we're actively continue to try and encourage involvement and enrollment.
I know it might be a little bit challenging to go from 75 members to like 30,000 members, but it sure seems like someone from every fire department should have some sort of role or be involved or engaged with the Tech Council at this point.
I say we manifest it. We need 30,000
Do it.
members. We're just going to kind of create the program, and there's no reason why we can't do something that makes it, again, a resource to make it attainable and accessible for you on your own terms.
Well, and you don't have to be a chief to be a member of the IFC, and you can join. There's a lot of different options for it, And before we had talked, and I had said I had 2 questions, and I asked the first one about, being that senior member, how do they start to embrace the technology? And the second part of that is, we've always had this discussion about the difference of generations. This younger generation coming up, they don't know how to use a chainsaw, they don't know how to use a screwdriver. Well, here is a prime example, right? Me being a more senior person, I know how to use a chainsaw. I'll show them how to use a chainsaw. They're going to show me how to more efficiently manage my calendar, check my emails, utilize apps like Pulse Point. How do I find a hydrant? Oh, hey, this is how, Lou, right? Like, there are ways that we can use technology to bridge the gap between the different generations. And on that note, then, what are the things, like, fundamentally every firefighter needs to know when it comes to technology?
Well, one thing to the generation gap I want to just mention really quick. I was at the COG conference in DC. It was a focus on health and wellness, and Chief John Tippett from NFFF was talking, and he had this quote up on the board, and it was like this quote that said, "This generation is so lazy. Everything's been handed to them. They're like they have no manners. They don't look you in the eye. They just like when you read it." Immediately my hunch was like, this was probably boomers saying this about millennials. And he was like, when do you think this quote was said? And someone that said that, and he said it, it was some fire chief from 1903 talking about and it's like literally the same exact thing happens generation over generation. It's just like the technology and the mediums, no doubt this little thing called the cell phone has kind of changed everything in terms of recalibrating how some ways we communicate, the ways we consume, and everything. But I don't think we just have to remember that we're not that. History continues to evolve and repeat itself. The mediums and the norms are evolving. So not getting mad at something you don't understand, but also, like I said, be willing to say maybe to something new, I think is probably the best strategy there. But to like, what do you need to know? I mean, anything good in life, anything worth wanting takes time. Like if you just expect that you're just going to use Chat GPT, or you're going to use, some various Microsoft tools or Copilot or something, and all of a sudden your life's going to get better without knowing how to use it, you're wrong. You're assuming incorrectly. Like, you have to put in the time. Like, but there's a lot of free resources and stuff, whether it's Coursera or the IAFC or Fire Rescue One or Clarion, that like FTIC, like there are a lot of resources, and I'm hoping we continue to kind of bring it to you where you just got to put in the time. And I think if you put in an hour a week, an hour, a couple hours a month, and not try and do it all at once, like if you take a 6-month horizon on learning how to use pulse point, a 6-month horizon on how to adopt and use drones, like it's that, yeah, I wish it happened tomorrow, but also being a little bit not as hard on yourself and being willing to tinker and try stuff and fail and not beat yourself up. That's part of the learning process. And I said the quote earlier, but I think a lot about Coach K and Coach Wooden, and they talk a lot about just doing the next right thing right and keeping it very simple and in the most simple actions, in terms of like just taking one step and just passing the ball, just going on YouTube and watching one video, just going on Google and reading one article. Like, they sound so small and insignificant, but those little things do build up, and those are attainable tasks. Like, those are things that you can do in terms of learning. And but yeah, if you don't put in the time to learn, then you won't get anywhere.
If a fire chief is listening to this, where would you suggest they start from an organizational standpoint? From connectivity, possibly. We haven't mentioned much about FirstNet, but I know that is something that is underutilized right now, and we as a fire service need to start embracing a little bit more, because, of course, if the government has put this work behind it, right, and if we don't use it, they're going to try to find something else for
Yeah.
that. So is that where you think organizations need to start? Is just focus on your connectivity, and where are you seeing, or what would you suggest?
Well, the FirstNet Authority, and I think about like Gary McCarr and Michael Varney, those guys' job is literally 1000% just to listen to the fire service. And if you want to be mad and complain, pick up the phone and call them. They will listen to you and they will help solve your problem. So from a FirstNet connectivity perspective, Michael Varney, Gary McCarr, find them on LinkedIn. I can give you their info. They are great resources. But in addition to that, that's actually one thing I think the Tech Council will continue to drive and lead is, again, these cookbooks, these playbooks. It's like, so you want to start with drones. So you want to start with connectivity. So you want to start with VR. Here's how you can do it. I have some lived experiences on the industry side, working with the fire service side, working IFC, that I can speak to, but it really depends. And I mean, there are some great influencers that I can mention. One, Kirk McKenzie, is someone that's just kind of beating the drums and doing amazing stuff from kind of a high level tech. AJ Johansson from a TAC perspective, he's doing amazing work. I mentioned Ralph Blomers from a wildfire perspective. Chelsea Rubidoux from Craig 1300 community risk reduction. The list goes on and on. I'd be happy to continue to name drop because frankly, I'm a little bit of a generalist because I love, frankly, I feel a little more comfortable when I'm interviewing. So Aaron, I gotta get you in the
Yeah.
grill you some questions, but there's amazing people that are beating the drums, and we just got to continue to, again, your duty, Aaron, and yours, Janelle's, and mine, is to spotlight and bring those to the forefront. So we just continue to get better, faster, smarter, safer as a fire service.
Well, I appreciate the insights. I agree 100%. It's just like technology is just, when all the UL research and data came out, for the fire service, now starting almost 10, 15 years ago, some people didn't want to embrace it. Some people did. And those that embraced it, utilized it and learned from it and started to apply it. And I think we're very similar positioning from tech in general, right? People at first didn't want to embrace it. This is firefighting. It's really easy. You put the wet stuff on the red stuff. You roll up your stuff and you go home. We're realizing that this is much more, right? There's just there's just so many different avenues we can go. We can go GIS, we can go AI, we can go drones. But I really appreciate the kind of overview of, look, figure that you're going to have to start to re-educate and focus on educating yourself, and then utilize people within your environment, right? Utilize that younger generation that might embrace and understand this. So really good tips, man. And you gave us some great resources to start from. You also have one great resource that you haven't really mentioned, and that's your own website. And if before we put you on the hot seat and ask you some really tough questions, give me an overview. Smartfirefighting.com. What was the idea behind that, and what kind of things can we see on that website?
Well, thank you. It was actually and I'm still very closely working with WS Darling Company, but it was talking and working with Peter Darley and my past colleague Mike Masserino and also Matt Darley, and that report came out and we were looking at it. And it's like, great, this is an awesome report, but like it's a 350-page document that was cool, red ribbon cutting, kind of shaking hands, kissing babies type thing, but like, what next? And so it was kind of in 2016 when
Sure.
again
What
podcast
report are you referring to again? If I
the
didn't catch.
roadmap to the research roadmap to the future of smart firefighting in
Okay.
collaboration between NIST and NFPA. Awesome report talking about very futuristic stuff, smart apparatus, wearables, drones, smart cities, all these things. Great. But it's like not everyone just reads a 350-page report. And so kind of on that, I reverse engineered the thinking of, well, what could we do to bring that to people in the masses? And that's when I just kind of figured out, let me buy a microphone, let me buy some lights, let me buy some computers. But I just started kind of breaking the website into sections of smart apparatus, drones, wearables, and then putting the microphone in people's faces that were smarter than myself about particular topics. And I've had the fortune of having members like whether it's Victor Stagnaro, whether it's Dr. Lori Moore, whether it's Jim Pauly, just amazing people from across the fire service that have incredible insights. And I try to, frankly, a lot of it's kind of informative Q&A. I also have a big focus on entrepreneurs and startups. I think it's really important to continue to spotlight these entrepreneurs that have crazy ideas where of 100 of them, probably only 5 of them have real merit and then going to bring it to market, but there's still nuggets of value from these kind of very well-intended crazy entrepreneurs that are looking to find ways to bring more value to the fire service. So a lot of startups, a lot of fire chiefs, a lot of conversations with .govs, .org, .edus, the NIST, the ULs, the NFPAs, the NAFTDs of the world. And we just continue to share ideas and best practices. Right now, we're in the middle of releasing a mini series from the AFAC show down under in Australia. I was there with the Institute of Fire Engineers, and there was a lot of talk on X Prize, the whole competition of how to use space-based tracking and autonomous drones to put out wildfires from space. There was a lot of cool talks, and there we looked at the connection between fire engineers and firefighters and kind of bridging the gap there. A lot of really cool stuff we could dig into that. But yeah, shout out to the Institute of Fire Engineers. It's a really cool mini series. Dr. Lori's episode just came out. We had one with just Dan Cotter from DHS and Dr. James Mullins from Deakin University. So the website, frankly, is a little underwhelming. If I had to be honest, I think I put more effort into just putting out content weekly, but we're continuing to repurpose the content. And for me, the podcast is just a cool foot in the door opportunity. We are starting to take sponsorship opportunities. We really haven't done that. I've continued to want to make it just a free and available resource. But probably the thing I do enjoy most with it is we do these roundtables. We're going to start doing them again monthly starting in February. But it's not a Zoom webinar. It's usually a Zoom meeting where we have like 60 to 80 people, and there's 2 or 3 people who present for 5 to 8 minutes. And after the 25 minutes or so of talking, then it's a open mic. If you got a question, ask it. If you got a comment, drop it. There's been real business and real connections that happen from these virtual meetings. And especially, some people think webinars and virtual events are dead. They're not. And if you do them right and thoughtfully and tastefully, I copied this format from Gary Breeze, who leads the Colorado State Fire Chiefs, and virtual forums are very good if it's thoughtful, intentional, and valuable. So podcast roundtables, and shout out to WS Darling Company, who continues to support and be behind it. And Darley is one of the most progressive and innovative companies from manufacturing and distribution. And I'm grateful to, Paul and Peter Darley are some of the best innovators in the space, and they continue to support the podcast at a large scale. So yeah, check it out, smartfirefighting.com. We're actively I'm always looking for the next pod. So
Yeah.
maybe that's you, Aaron. So you're next victim.
I'm willing, I'm like I think you and I are very similar we talk to a lot of smart people and then we go, okay, what can what can I do about this? How can I apply this information? Like these smart people are doing all this research. Here's what they're finding. And I think it's individuals like you and I who say, all right, this is how we can actually go out and apply this on the truck, on the field, in a fire situation. And with that, so I like to, I'm going to claim you as a misfit, a better every shift misfit. And like what I call us as misfits is not only because you're a Badger, but because you just believe in utilizing technology, utilizing resources around you, utilizing each other to make yourself better, and then transfer that information on to others. And that's the essence of what we're about here on the program. And you fit right in. So we could probably have you back, and we'd love to because we could go so many different
Yeah.
directions. So appreciate the time for this, brother, and just the great insights. Of course, we finish our podcast here with some kind of one-on-one quick hitting questions we like to call hot seat questions. And Janelle and I go back and forth on which ones we're going to ask from time to time. So sometimes she knows what I'm going to ask. Sometimes she doesn't, but I always let her start. So Janelle, you're on it. Go for it.
All right. I've got a couple of different ones lined up for you today, Kevin. So, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, just sharing some fun stories. And I was hoping you could share perhaps your wildest fire service related moment that you can share on the podcast. It's appropriate. Um, Curious to see where you'll go with this.
Wildest fire service moment. Um, I mean, I guess my mind just kind of goes to the moments that I've just had the opportunity of actually integrating technology into fire service technology, departments that didn't have tech and now integrating it in certain ways. So that having to do with like integrating virtual reality into the Red Rocks Community College in terms of integrating drone as a first responder within different departments. So those are one, but I guess kind of like my own like fire moments. Like we talked about this kind of jokingly. I had a friend who freshman year in college had a hookah in his dorm room and knocked it over, and it started a fire. And found out that actually Aaron was a firefighter in Madison at that time, and maybe responded to the witty
Yes.
line being pulled at
Celery Hall, I
Celery
believe it
Hall.
was.
Yeah, at like I don't know, midnight, maybe November 2008. I was not part of it, but I think my friend also came into my room later that next day playing "We Didn't Start the Fire," but I was like, dude, you actually indeed did start the fire. So, but yeah, I think those were funny moments learning earlier on about, again, no one thinks about what happens or what goes wrong, and then all of a sudden something goes wrong, and then the fire service or police and EMS is outside. So it's just another moment of, I guess, maturing in my life of gratitude to first responders that respond to college drunk idiots that need help sometimes, and again, also like tying it back to the LA fires, like just like these selfless first responders that put others above self is truly the most, to me, is the ultimate mark of a hero that's that's leading and doing amazing stuff.
Uh, I'm kind of chuckling because I've had a similar fire there at Celery Hall. This is one of the dormitories on University of Wisconsin campus where a pile of clothes started on fire, and the particular individual was not. I wasn't doing anything. I don't know how it started on fire, so I'm wondering if that was your buddy. But we're talking about almost 10 years ago plus, so very well could have been. Tell him, tell him. Hopefully he learned his lesson. I
Yes.
will. I do remember that every single time we had an incident at that dorm, we would whether it was hot or in this particular, like I think it was a colder time of the year, but we would always tell the students to vacate even if it was a false alarm, because there's nothing like watching I don't even know 150 college students out there freezing at midnight all drunk, so that's always been a fun thing for us to do, because then they don't pull fire alarms, and they also know
Learn their lesson.
yeah, they learn their lesson. You got to teach them a little bit. Um, and so we're talking about lessons. And you are a Packers fan, and uh, Green Bay is rich in heritage, and you're passionate about it. There it is. And now we just got defeated in the playoffs, and of course, people are probably listening, just going, "Oh, you guys suck," whatever. And we did not play very well. But as a kid growing up, being a Packers fan, are there any particular Packer moments that you cherish as a child, or that you've kind of grown up with and will always remember?
The one thing I love about the Green Bay Packers and where I'm ahead is that the Packers bring my family together. It truly, I mean, like all sports do. So if you love a sports team, I respect that. Even if you love the Bears, I still can respect that if you're from Chicago.
Yes.
But
They
but
need all the help they can get. They need
ultimately,
family right now more than ever. I mean, rebuilding since 1986. Come on. Yeah.
yeah, seriously. Um, but no, I think when I think about moments, granted, Aaron Rodgers is a little bit of a political or a polarizing figure. I'm still forever grateful, but I just kind of think about, um, again, the amazing Super Bowl run in 2010, 2011. That's when I was studying abroad. I remember watching the Super Bowl when I was in Accra, Ghana, beating the Steelers. And so that was just like a pure euphoria moment. But I think the coolest thing about the Packers is that they are a publicly owned team. They were struggling in the 40s, and they opened up stock to the community. And then ultimately they used the community to fund them through the times. And now they are the smallest there's the smallest city to have a professional sports team. They have an incredible organization where all leadership and management has to retire by the age of 70. Crazy thought to think about. So I think even people that hate the Packers know that they're a very well-run organization. And yes, we did not show up yesterday. Yes, we had some challenges and trials and tribulations. It was a good season, not a great season, still a step forward. And you can go on Twitter and there are trolls on trolls on trolls. It's really not healthy to like read that stuff.
Nope.
I hope the team continues to use this fuel. This is the one thing that I am irrationally emotional about and beyond happy to wear all the time. Obviously, it's a little sad, but at the same time, I use the seasonality sometimes too. Right now with less social media, and now my hair is all bobo zigzag, as my mom would say. Like just grateful for the Packers, and I mean, I think we also can look at some of the best Vince Lombardi quotes. And I'm looking at one right now: is winning is not a sometime thing. It's an all the time thing. You don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. And the achievements of an organization are the result of the combined effort of each individual. And I think that speaks a lot to the fire service in certain ways of like, just do your part, and everyone doing their part, and we will do this successfully. Follow your training, follow your protocols, follow your gut. And the collective individuals will pull together. And so, yeah, I mean, I love all sports and I respect other sports fans. I just think the Packers are the best run organization, and we have our ups and downs, but I love our pack, and I'm feeling good about where we're going.
Well, I got a challenge for you. We do a stair climb for NFFF in Lambeau Field right around 9/11. We don't know the actual date because a lot of it's dependent upon the Packers schedule. So I'm going to challenge you to get some other Packer fans up and join me for that stair climb. It's in the field itself. It's in Lambeau Field. You get a tour of the facility and you get to see uh, just how cool it is. It's very nostalgic up there. A lot of football fans. I'm challenging not just Packer fans, but I'm challenging the misfits here, the Better Every Shift Nation, to come up and maybe join and meet you there if you're a big game. But now you're just south, so it's a nice weekend trip for you. We'll be in contact as we know that more, but I'm going to throw that out to you. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, Kevin, I'm curious. We all have our weaknesses in the world of tech, right? What's your pain point technology where you're just like, I just need to learn how to use this? Or is it something like, the remote not connecting to your smart TV where you're just like constantly trying to avoid throwing it against the wall? What's your white whale
I think
technology?
in a lot of ways it's practicing what I preach, and sometimes I am the biggest bottleneck of everything that I do. And so what I've been, I mean, even I had a meeting with I have a video podcast editor. I actually have two of them, both in the Philippines. One's named Felix, one's named David. I've never talked to Felix except via LinkedIn. David I have meetings with, but I think just continuing to try and automate, continue to try and outsource, and continue to try and not be the bottleneck. And I guess you sometimes have to think about what would it cost me to do the video editing and all this, and am I really good at it? But if you can find someone to do it for $10 an hour, versus me doing that, it's a much better efficient use of time. So I'd say ultimately just outsourcing and automating certain stuff. And then further to that is I'm still, I would say I'm a novice in using different AI tools. And so I think just continuing to test, try. And then probably the biggest one is that YouTube is not, YouTube, in my opinion, is very underrated. It's probably one of the most powerful social media and search engine tools. And so for me, it's continuing to not just look at YouTube as a place of consumption, but looking at YouTube as a place to spotlight best practices and drive home a lot of these messages. So for me, it's taking YouTube more seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that flows really nicely into our last question. Of course, the essence of what we talk about is getting better. What things or thing are you doing right now to really get and be better? Now, it doesn't have to be just in the job. It can be in life too.
Yeah.
What's that one focus you really got right now?
Well, my wife and I are expecting our first baby boy mid-March. So we're like at
Congrats.
31 weeks right now, and we're like officially nesting and just like I'm building IKEA furniture, I'm repainting walls and just doing stuff. But I'm fortunate. I have 10 nieces and nephews on my side, 7 on her side. So we have a little bit of exposure to therapy, but I think I've now continued to just think about every action I take in terms of what would my son think? Why am I doing this? And kind of putting every action I have under a little bit more of a microscope and realizing it's not all about me. And one thing that has really changed my perspective in the past 2 months is I joined a kickboxing gym. And when I'm kickboxing and I'm just beating the crap out of a bag, like I'm thinking about nothing. I'm not thinking about the Smart Fire Fan podcast. I'm thinking about being the bag. And I just, it really helps me focus. It helps me get the right mindset. So I think for me, it's just like with anyone, continue to focus on what's your kind of workout that really enjoys. Like we all know PT and physical exercise is critical, but whether it's a Peloton, whether it's running, whether it's trying a local gym classes, that's one. I'm big into continue to I've been doing Wim Hof method, breathing method for a couple of
Mhm.
years now and cold immersion. So luckily in Chicago, I can just go right out in the snow and don't need to, do a cold
Yeah,
immersion.
right. Back door. Just open that thing up and
Yeah,
go.
and go. So those are things I'm doing in the right mindset. And then another thing we didn't talk too much about, but kind of from like a professional standpoint is, in addition to working with IAFC and supporting them, and, also kind of helping support FDIC with their next gen fire rescue tech summit. It's a pre-con happening on the Wednesday, but for anyone that's coming to FDIC, that's going to be, I'm hoping to continue to sprinkle in aspects of the unconference there of, experiencing tech hands-on and then going to see it out in the field, and going to be really cool opportunities where if you're going to FDIC, if you're going to be there, come there that Wednesday and touch it, feel it, burn it, break it, blow it up, really see tech, not just in the classroom, but in the field. So I'm really focused on that, between the FDIC pre-con, the tech council, and getting my mind and house right. That's what I'm doing. And I welcome all tips because I'm still just, still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, still trying to figure out what I want to do, but I'm taking it one day at a time.
Yeah. I would give you 2 tips. Number 1, don't grow up, and number 2, take your own advice and just take it day by day and stay committed to it. Right. I think fitness, health, and wellness, learning tech, and just being a more balanced individual all takes devotion every single day. And I think you nailed it. You're right on the right track. It's just a matter of staying consistent and bringing people around you, which I think you already have a pretty good base of that. And now with the Misfit Nation, you're going to have to, because people are going to ask you when they see you, like, hey, you still kickboxing? How did the baby come? So, right. Like, it's great to talk about those things, because now you have a little bit of a built-in accountability system, like myself and Janelle, because when we do see you, we're going to ask you those things. And of
Good.
course, you're now on my list to do a stair climb. So you better stay in shape, my friend, and
Oh,
keep learning, because we're going to have you on for more episodes with sharing your knowledge and what you're learning and seeing from the tech side. So
thanks,
greatly
bro.
appreciate it, man. Yeah, thank you so much. For those that are listening to us, I had mentioned it earlier, but I encourage you to go over to our YouTube channel at Fire Rescue One. You can see all of our episodes in video. You can also go and to firerescue1.com. You can click on the Better Every Shift banner. You can email us at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. This year, and for this particular episode and future episodes, really would like you to rate, review, and share the show, man. Please share this to your crew, to your family, to your friends, anybody that you think would enjoy and or get something from the program. To our guests, thank you so much for joining us and for your insights, Kevin, for again, and your passions for helping the fire service. That's the essence of the program. And you had mentioned a lot of different things from working on communication between generations, working on yourself, sticking to some of the fundamentals, and just taking time to consistently apply and learn more, and have this attitude where, all right, I'm going to give it a chance. Because I think when we give it a chance, we come out of our comfort zones. And all of this comes back to what we try to do and what we emphasize here at the Better Every Shift podcast. It's about learning something, doing something, moving something, and sharing something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.